Hello, Mr. Metz. The first segment that I did started at 21 minutes and 47 seconds in the movie, around there. And the first shot is the close-up of the different tribal art that's on the rocks. And I think that this is kind of like introducing us to the next topic, and right after we're done looking at the beautiful tribal art, the Aborigines man who looks like Will Ferrell, he pops onto the screen and he's just staring at us, and I don't want to say that he is observing us, but I think it's kind of like it's like when somebody gives you an awkward stare in the hallway and it's kind of like they catch your attention, and I think that's what they were trying to do, like right off the bat. They're trying to catch our attention so that we would listen to what they're saying, And they do that a lot throughout the movie. If you look, like, there's a whole bunch of people that just randomly stop and stare at us. So, but after the Aborigines man is on the screen, we see a bunch of different scenes of tribal people. They had the African tribe women beading, and then they had their dance. And they had the South American girls with the painted bodies, and they were doing their cultural, what they do, especially the Aborigines. They were also doing their dance. It was an inside look into three different cultures that most of us probably don't even know anything about. We don't know why they're doing this. We don't know, what the purpose is. We don't know if they're celebrating or if it's a funeral or a party, or we don't know. That's the point. We don't know. And I think that kind of looks into I keep saying we, but I mean we as a culture, like Americans, we as a culture, we don't really pay attention to anything outside of ourselves. We don't think about what's going on around us, kind of like an example would be when we watched The Corporation, where they said that we take for granted the products that we get without thinking about where they come from or how they were made, or who paid for them and such. Excuse me. But it's kind of like that we're blind to these other cultures. We don't think about them. We don't pay attention to them. Which I think that the point of the movie is to make us look at them, to force us into it, to shock us into it, to make us, completely being stripped away from our comfort zone. It's like having a bucket of cold water dumped on you. And especially when the South American girls come in and there's all the nudity. And of course, in our culture, it's usually, you censor that. But it's much like, we're just like, whoa, what is going on? What the heck are these people doing? They look, it's like, our minds are blown. And that's kind of I think that's kind of supposed to help us have a blank slate to really analyze them, to really think about what they're doing and why they're doing it. Mainly because it needs to be known that we're not the only culture in the world. We're not the reigning champs. We're not the presiding people, And it's more like waking us up to the fact that, yes, these people may be very different from us, but that doesn't mean that we're better than them. I mean, if you turn it around and they're looking at us, we probably look like the vainest, most greedy, indulgent people in the world. We sit there and we put makeup on our faces and straighten our hair. I mean, how is that different from them painting their bodies? Their idea of attractive might be far different from ours, but it's still the same basic, thing, isn't it? And of course, they do all these crazy dances, and they do, beading for hours straight, putting the necklaces and such together. But we hang on Facebook for 28 hours a day, So it's kind of like different, but not necessarily unequal, in fact, if I were to say so, I would think, if I were to have to choose, I would think that these, beautiful, absolutely stunning and breathtaking cultures, like what they do, it's so soulful and it's so pure. And I think that they're almost better than us because they're not as preoccupied with the material things, But also, the music that's in this scene, I think that it is very effective and that it's different from something that we would normally listen to. It's more like, it's spiritual, it kind of leads us into, it's kind of like scary music when something's about to happen in a movie, It's kind of like that. It's kind of helping us, to hone in on it, in an almost subconscious level, because we're not really paying attention to the music, but it's helping with the same, ambiance and such. The one thing that I really wanted to point out was there was a scene when it was a man, a very small man, that was praying in the bottom left corner, and then the rest of the screen you see this beautiful, absolutely gorgeous, huge temple that he's obviously praying to and showing respect for. And I think that I could take that as a metaphor for we, as like our culture is just one culture that makes up such a way bigger, universe, a way bigger world, way bigger, planet. And excuse me. And the point that I'm trying to make is that we are the man, not like, oh, the man, but the man represents us in that we are one small part of a much bigger picture. We are one culture amongst millions. And we need to take a step back and look, oh, we're not as awesome as we think we are. So I think that was just one of the main points. And I think that with the music added to it, it kind of helps the filmmakers in that if someone were to tell you something, it would be biased. I'm not saying there's no bias in this movie, but I'm saying that if someone were to be speaking, like narrating, it would be biased towards what that person thought. And I think that with just showing us the raw material, and I do mean raw material, with just the video and the imagery and with the music with it, I think that helps us make our own decision based on what we're seeing. It makes us think about it in our own way without being tainted by another person's, point of view. So that's my first segment. And I really like that part, so that's one of the reasons why I chose it, and I hope that you agree with my skills.